January 6, 2020 District Administrative Meeting, Meet and Confer Negotiation meeting to order. The first thing that I'd like to do is welcome the new members to the CEA team, and I'll turn it over to new CEA Chair, Mr. Regala, to introduce yourself and new team member.
So happy to be here, Dr. Murphy, and Ms. Heck. We are going to do this again, so it'll be very fun. But I'm serving currently as the CEA president, and I'm serving as the chair. And I'll have our vice president introduce herself.
Hi, Sandra Cobos. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. Let's get started.
Thank you. Just a quick review of the norms. I do have some copies for everyone just because there was a couple typos on the last version. So as those are passed out, the meeting will begin and end by the appointed time. Spokespersons may recognize other team members to speak when appropriate and may call a caucus with the mutual agreement of the chairs. Team members will display courtesy and respect for each other during the meet and confer process by focusing on student achievement, being attentive to the topic, practicing active listening, and approaching each topic under consideration with an open mind. The district administrative team and the CEA team will respond to proposals within 2 meet and confer meetings, and all proposals will be submitted for consideration by March 26, 2020. I know that the next item on the agenda, Mr. Regala, you wanted to get some clarification on proposal submission norm.
Yeah, so that's in reference to Norm 5, which reads, all proposals will be submitted for consideration by March 26, 2020. Having discussion with our team, the clarification that we were looking for was that that is in reference to new proposals, not necessarily counter proposals. Being that there are 2 meetings afterwards, to us it logically makes sense that we might need to do some counter proposals and try to tighten up some things.
Yes, you're understanding that exactly correctly. So if something is submitted as a brand new proposal on the 26th, the 2 meeting norm would then be used for consideration or counter proposal, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to the next item, classified handbook and certified handbook combination. Mr. Regala.
So our team has a variety of questions because there's been an awful lot of conversation about combining both handbooks, and that's quite a complicated process. I have some prepared, so I guess we'll just kind of go through some of them. I think that's the logical way to do this. We were wondering when the combination of the handbooks is intended on happening, and then who is going to be charged with completing this, and then also what is CEA's role in that process.
Well, I think at this point it's more of a goal or a vision, since some of the proposals are about providing A, B, and C for all staff. Either through the meet and confer process, through representation, through those types of things. More than likely, that would probably be a concept to be agreed to through meet and confer, which with a subcommittee or committee that would be formed, and then come back together with the proposal of that combination as far as the framework to the meet and confer table.
So when we're referencing the combination of the handbook, I just want to be clear that we would pass a proposal that is more like concept driven, that would agree to form a committee and then create that proposal in that committee. Is that just for clarification?
Correct.
Okay. I just know that there's conversations last year. I just want to throw this out to the room, where we had talked a lot about a committee being formed to look at and pass various proposals that we proposed for classified, and that was supposed to be our conversations last year was the CAC committee, and I know that a lot of that did not happen this year, so I just want to make sure that whatever we're agreeing to or talking about here is something that we actually go forward with. That being said, after I'm sure this could warrant, so this warrants a proposal, I suppose, from the district side or our side. Some of the things that we're interested in is that any language that was omitted or added, or after this handbook is combined, the meet and confer teams meet to officially pass that proposal. And then also that we are hoping that this meet and confer session, that classified proposals are still strongly considered in addition to our new handbook moving forward, if that makes sense.
It does.
And I just want to bring up as well, last year we passed a proposal to make a digital access to the handbook that was supposed to come into effect in the next school year. I want to make sure that that's something that we're still working on.
Which handbook are you referring to? As far as last year, it was the teacher one, correct?
Yes.
And when you say digital, like the ability to click on it in the searchable event, it is already functioning.
Awesome. Thank you.
It's been there since August.
Is that on the school district website?
Yep, it's on the same link. It's always been there.
Oh, okay.
That's what we published the first time.
Okay, thank you. Then the last question I have about that, and maybe this kind of combines with something we're talking about later, is are certified and classified employees in the new handbook going to be receiving the same rights, or I guess kind of consideration for how we would determine that?
Well, I don't know if there's an overall yes or no to that type of question, because no classified employees will not have a certain amount of prep time per week. So that's why I'm thinking that, the committee idea is to really look at it. And so the agreement here would be to establish a committee through a proposal. I believe that, like, as you stated, is probably the most appropriate way. That committee takes the two handbooks, works to bring those together into, this is what we're proposing as a handbook, or, on the other side of it, it might not work out, right? It's a vision or a goal for bringing them together, and then see what we do from there. So what I'm thinking is maybe, really discussing at the February 20th meeting about what the makeup of that committee would be. It doesn't give a huge turnaround, but it's more of a, conceptual, and making sure with those 2 months that are available to, make sure that, able to put it together in that committee.
So is the idea having the handbooks finished before the end of meet and confer, or before the start of the next school year?
I mean, as far as full completion of a handbook, the goal is before the start of the next school year. Having discussion about particulars in a handbook, et cetera, and changes typically has continued beyond the end of the official meet and confer process by looking at that. So I think that practice will still be in place to still collaborate on that prior to it becoming the handbook, but the concept of it and that initial work completed during the process.
I think that, to me, and just looking at my team, I think that makes sense. The one thing I would add is, so it's just to make sure we're on the same page, I think, so we're talking about creating a committee to establish the framework of how that handbook is really going to look and be worked out over the summer, and then coming to an agreement so that we can put the handbook into place. And then a past practice, and it is always that before handbooks are published, they're submitted to the CEA president for review to make sure that everything is in order.
Yes,
Okay.
Perfect is what I'm saying.
Thank you.
You good on that particular agenda item number 5?
The only thing, I think I asked it, but I just want to be clear, and I'm sorry if I sound repetitive, but moving forward, we're still going to be considering various classified proposals during this process, even though we are going to be combining the handbook.
I think that there will always be consideration of proposals, regardless of for classified or whomever. However, if it's, the counter to that may be, we see this as a part of the handbook work. But yes, considered, yes, of course. Because I don't know that all proposals would fit into a handbook.
Okay.
Like, as far as part of that process, it may be something that needs a counter proposal on a decision outside of that.
The only thing I'll add is I'd encourage the district's team that our classified members at this table and our classified staff in this district are definitely looking forward to us continuing to improve working conditions for them. So for whatever does not fit into that committee, I'm hoping that we have consideration for that.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. And I think that's all that we have on that item.
Moving on to item 6, healthcare committee discussion and procedures, Mr. Woodhull.
So I know in the past practice of the last several years, to my understanding, is that there is a collaborative healthcare committee between the district and some members from the CEA team. My question was, what is the current timeline for forming the healthcare committee? And again, just since I nor our vice president have been reached out for CEA's role in that committee, I was just wondering kind of some of the details.
Is that what we've called the insurance
Yes.
committee?
Yes, that's right. That's what I mean. Yes, my apologies.
Okay. All right. I think perhaps there's someone here who could clarify that.
So the insurance committee is usually brought together.
Sorry, I just want to request that we use the mic for all conversations. Some of the feedback that I got from some people who watched on online is that it's hard to hear sometimes without using the mic.
Yeah. Okay, were you going to clarify? I thought our CFO was going to clarify. You want to?
Thank you, district team and CEA committee. Typically what's happened in the past is there's been a standing, what we call an insurance committee, that would typically meet towards the end of March when our renewal rates were published to us by our insurance consultant. However, this year there's been a change in the timeline because we are exploring our options of becoming self-insured rather than purchasing actual insurance in order to try to bring the costs down for family coverage. So that process will take some time. I've already talked to Sandra Arden, who's our benefits employee here at the district. We will probably not have our rates out until May-ish timeframe, and that's a worst case scenario. But I know that open enrollment typically lasts for about 2 to 3 weeks in the district through iVisions, but I'm proposing that we extend that to a longer period to allow anyone that's already off contract at that time to be able to go in remotely and pick their benefits, as long as we have the portal closed by the 1st of July when benefits become effective. Now, as far as the committee makeup, it's been pretty standard over time. It's been 2 members from HR, Dr. Romito from Atkinson, Melanie from Palm Lane, Betsy Bryan from AFS, myself, Debbie Mills from Business Services, Sandra, the Benefits Coordinator, Rosie from Food Services, and our consultant. That's the typical membership, and that's been ongoing. The names have changed, but the people, the positions have kind of been stable over time.
So maybe this is more of a historical question. I just, through my understanding and reading of the handbook, part of meeting Confer is fringe benefits. My understanding is that healthcare and insurance would be one of those things. Also, it's in the handbook, and our scope refers to anything in the handbook. So my question is, from what I've seen in meeting Confer, at least how we did it last year, why hasn't the insurance plans gone through Meet Confer, and why are we not intending to do that this year?
I'm not sure that we've taken those through each year. Maybe Michelle's been an active member previously. Maybe you can help in terms of giving some context regarding the past practice over the last decade or so.
So over time, any decisions made to the insurance change, including self-funded and not self-funded, all go to the insurance committee, even the decision to become self-funded and non-self-funded. However, the district has always had the ability to choose that without it being a meet and confer agreement, because they have to look at the financial health of the district. We have always let our position be known, meaning CEA would, and the district would make a decision whether we were self-funded or non-self-funded based on the feasibility from a financial budgetary standpoint, because at one time we were self-funded. But CEA and the meet and confer process did not dictate that. What did happen is the discussion of what plans and also an RFP bid of who we used to help us secure those plans were part of the insurance committee. And the insurance committee would come together if there was an RFP out or if there was a change in the insurance to look at what we wanted to adopt. Does that clarify?
Yeah, I think that does clarify the past practice. I would contend that based on the language we currently have in our handbook, that the insurance should go through meet and confer for approval based on current language. And I understand sometimes things aren't always following word for word what's in here, but it is something I think, just like with salaries.
So let me clarify again, because maybe I wasn't clear. The insurance committee brings the recommendation back to the meet and confer teams. The meet and confer teams then make a decision based on those recommendations. The insurance plans and coverages are a decision. Whether to be self-funded or non-self-funded is not part of that insurance committee and has not been, because that is driven by the budgetary needs of the district and its overall financial health.
So just for clarification. So after, if we decide to be self-funded, we would then need to talk about the plans that come out of
exactly, and what that looks like in its allocation of benefits to employees through the district.
Okay, so then I just want to commend the district for doing whatever they can to lower healthcare costs, as it is something that is a shared interest. The concern that I and our team has is we're unsure on what healthcare is going to look like until the summer. What does that look like in terms of meet and confer this year and our teams respectively?
Well, I'm not sure. It's been a combination, as Michelle very ably described, of that committee, but has it strictly been a meet and confer item that was proposed and was approved here in its entirety? No, it wasn't. And again, those decisions were made elsewhere. So to say it's going to be in the same form a proposal as everything else and come through would be a departure from past practice. Yeah.
One other thing that's really important to keep in mind is a lot of times the district does not have complete say in what those health plan makeups look like. It's driven by our utilization and the market cost and whatever the structures are that those plans bring to us. So example of the gold plan that was being phased out and people not being able to come on to that. So when you are thinking about the insurance benefits, we also have to remember that some of the things that we are wanting cannot be driven by the district. It's really determined by the health plan and how they structure their benefits. So there are pieces of that we can't even negotiate.
The only thing I'll add for now is that maybe some further discussion and how that process will unfold this year can be taken into consideration for both teams and revisited at another meeting. Just and I'm not saying us picking the plan, but how can we make sure that the association is in detailed discussion of this process.
Well, I think one of the things that we could do maybe as a next step would bring back, as Victoria alluded to, is the past makeup of the insurance committee, which seemed to be, half CEA representation, that are some also here at the table. Have some information about timeline, and then we kind of move forward from there collaboratively what that would look like.
I think that is a good idea, and I know, again, there's a lot of factors in play, but I think the big thing is, at least for us, we definitely would like better healthcare benefits, but and insurance benefits, but certainly, hopefully through this process, and I don't think that this is the intention, it doesn't become anything less than what we currently have.
So moving on to item 7, discussion and clarification on proposal submission procedure. Mr. Wagela.
Okay, so this is in reference to the, just clarifying that when we were giving each other different proposals, that this is the kind of agreed upon way to present those. That new language is bolded. That we're removing, if we're going to remove language, we're putting a strike through. That we're including rationale and any related key policy information. The only reason I bring this up is because the last proposal we received from district didn't have a rationale, and we would really like to have that written if that's possible. And then also a request that proposals submitted from both sides are hole punched. I don't know if that's an unreasonable expectation, but it just makes it a little easier for us to be organized at the table. If that's something that the district could do moving forward, we would appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Thank you.
Did you need a clarification on the rationale for the one proposal we submitted so far?
No, I think we understand that. I just moving forward, it's something we'd like to see.
Okay. Number 8, clarification on classified rights proposal.
Okay, so I know I was not at the table, but I did watch the last meetings a couple times on the live stream. At the last meeting, it was suggested to CEA to resubmit different parts of this proposal. My question was, which parts of it did the district find acceptable? And also, if we're viewing this as a collaborative effort, to me and to our team, we feel that it logically makes sense for the district to have a counter or explain which parts are acceptable and willing to improve so that we can improve upon the proposals together, because we kind of left with not understanding which parts of that proposal were acceptable and which parts weren't. And it was kind of a guessing game. So just looking for some clarification there. If the whole thing was unacceptable and why, or if there were certain pieces you liked, we're just looking for some clarity.
I think what we can do with that is either bring back a detailed counter proposal on February 20th or a detailed explanation of to answer your questions.
That works. That works for us. Thank you.
All right, so the next item on the agenda, section D, number 1, approval of the minutes of the January 30th, 2020 District Administrative Meet and Confer negotiations. Mr. Hancock, I would like to move that we approve the minutes. Any questions or clarifications?
Yeah, I know that we just, I am new in the chair position, and maybe that's part of the reason I would have been sent the minutes from the last meeting. So I would like to make the suggestion that we approve the minutes at the next time that we meet, so that we have a chance to review them. And I know that's probably part of, it's our fault because of the transition, but I didn't receive any minutes this time, so.
Okay, we can get you the minutes for today's meeting, as well as January 30th, for a couple days prior to the next meeting on the 20th for review. And then obviously we'll publish those 24 hours in advance.
Thank you. Are they located on the board docs?
Yes.
Okay, good clarification there for me.
Yes, they are.
All right, Section E, new proposals, Cartwright Education Association, CEA presentation of new meet and confer proposals.
Okay, so we do have a new proposal, just one this week. And this is a resubmission of our class size proposal, and I'll explain kind of the rationale here. So the first proposal that was submitted from our team on class size, the counter from the district was its cost, and we understand the cost was going to be outrageous, to be quite honest with you. The numbers that we had presented were numbers that were recommended based on research, just to kind of give us a starting point. So what we are hoping moving forward is to find a cap for class sizes. Obviously, class size is a hugely important thing for workload, working conditions, but more importantly for our students and their success in order to build positive relationships. I know all of our campuses are PBIS, and that's something we're really trying to do. And when you have class sizes that are extraordinarily high, 30, 35, or even 40 in some cases, that can be problematic. What we're hoping is that our proposal here significantly brought down the costs. So we are proposing that grades K2 have a 25 student cap, 3 to 5, 28, and 6-8, we use the number that was suggested from the district side of 32 students. We'd like to get that into writing, and my understanding is that current board policy, those are set by the superintendent. What we would like to see is there be some consistency each year, and that it's not something that is determined differently every year. Specifically, we also have some different numbers for special ed, and I'm sure that you can see that as well, and then the caseload for some of our auxiliary staff. So we would like to see a baseline. I know that other districts have created some class size framework, and we're hoping to be able to do that here as well. I don't know what this does to the cost because we don't have the same data that the district team does, and we would actually love to see that. What does it look like? How many classrooms are there? How many students and how many teachers do we currently have? And anything that could help us in crafting a proposal to make some caps in that process.
I think a couple things. Districts that do have these items in policy is where they live the most detailed, and then others possibly through an agreement. I think that we can certainly take a detailed look at this, but I mean just right from the beginning, and some of the things that stand out are the $10 per day per student. I don't think if students are absent, you'd give us $50 back. So that's probably not going to be something we ever agree to per student fee if it's over. And the 25, 20, 32 could certainly look at that. being very transparent, district staffing for classrooms is already underway. So, we're already looking at how many sections fit into the budget based on current student numbers. So really any cost of any proposal would come from somewhere else. So as we're trying to, increase and, have our insurance stay status quo or become better, as suggested, we want certain things in terms of salary schedules. We want certain annual increases. And then we also want to lower class sizes. I don't think anyone doesn't want to do all of those things, but it's not an unlimited funding situation. So I think our position on this is to take another close look at it and come back with some thoughts, written thoughts on February 20th.
So I would just like to say that I understand that the need and the logic in creating and crafting the budget in advance. But I would, contend that part of this meeting Confer process is to talk about working conditions and the budget and things like that, and to get some feedback from our bottom level employees, the people who make the district run. Additionally, I don't think that a student being absent, that it's fair to compare that to the language in this proposal. This proposal and that language actually comes from a district in, I believe it's Oregon. So this is not unheard of. I do understand that the funding difference between Oregon and here, but I guess what I'm saying is that I don't think that it would be illogical that if our class sizes are wildly high, for the district to compensate for that, because you could argue that if class sizes are really high, the district isn't hiring as many teachers as they should to meet the needs of our students. And you still are responsible for your students and their caseload, even if they miss a day at school. So just wanted to bring that up. This also would be a really good selling point for our new hires in recruitment to advertise our low class sizes, and for our community members making the decision to come to Cartwright over our neighboring charter schools.
Thank you. Can I ask you a question? I apologize for missing the last session. Was there anything said about overall the rationale for the choice of class size as something we would be focusing on and expending millions of dollars potentially on? Did that happen last session?
There was. The cost from the last proposal was, I believe, estimated at $18 million. We don't, like I said, we don't have access to the data that you do, so we don't know what the cost is going to be until we're told what it is. So we would love to have that data.
Okay, well, we just, I believe, kind of roughed it out based on what you had. I guess as I'm looking at this, and I just, not to be argumentative, but just to try to frame this and put it in context, I acknowledge, having been a classroom teacher, that this is a major issue in terms of working conditions. And I recognize that, as we're sitting with principal staffing today and we're saying 32 looks good on paper, 32 is a little different when you're really sitting there and you got 32 live ones in front of you. I realize that. But just try to think about this and look at the research. You offered some research in your rationale, some single studies, some of them are relatively old. I just thought, okay, I'm not an expert on this, but I want to look at John Hattie's meta-analysis of class size. So I started looking, and he keeps getting more influences on academic achievement, 138. So I just ran this off, so I've got page 1, page 2, page 3, it takes me to page 4 till I get to the effect size for reducing class size, which is 0.21. he's really saying, gee, if it's lower than 0.40, not sure why we're looking at that. So just looking at his meta-analysis of tens of thousands of studies versus what is offered here, I'm just wondering. And then looking at his statements, certainly reducing class size has a small increase on achievement. But the problem that has been found is that when class size is reduced, teachers rarely change their practice. So it is thus not surprising that there are small differences. Imagine if teachers were retrained to optimize all the obvious advantages. But without major retraining, the effects are likely to remain as they have been when reducing class size. Went on to say, relative to other influences, it's a very low effect. And the only question is why this effect is so low but positive, given the major claims often argued for the amazing influence of reducing class size. So just in terms of framing it in terms of the research, the more I looked at that, the more I thought, okay, I understand it's a working condition issue. It's hard pressed based on the most recent meta-analysis to say it's a big deal in terms of student achievement. So I just felt compelled to share that. I do appreciate the effort to be research-based, but that's just kind of my question. Thank you.
So I'd like to first point out that Hattie's studies are meta-analysis, which is much less accurate than a meta-analysis. Also, John Hattie is not an educator and has not taught in classrooms. And I think that you could ask any employee, any parent, any student whether class size is something that is important to them. And I think the answer is going to be overwhelmingly yes. And the challenge that I think we have with, and hopefully I can speak for the association here, but the challenge with Hattie is that he's trying to put a mathematical equation on education, which is just not something that is logical or realistic. If you consider some of his other effect sizes to talk about Hattie, in terms of teacher-student relationship, I don't know the exact number, but there are a lot of things that correlate with class size and being able to do that you do get above a 0.4 effect size. Not that I'm saying that should be the method of educational research, because I don't think so, because it's a meta-analysis. There are a lot of critics of Hattie's work, and I think the biggest one for me is that he's not an educator. He doesn't know what it is like to be in the classroom with 35 students, especially ages 12, 11, 13, and so forth, kindergarten. So what we're trying to get at here is, what I would like the district to come forward with is, what is the max? What is the max that we have for our class sizes that we think is acceptable for the conditions of learning and for working conditions for teachers, and can we set a max somewhere?
I'd like to speak to that. This one. Can you hear me? There we go.
No.
Mine's dead. Okay, there we go. So in 2015, and Mr. Hancock, I believe you had helped do part of this, and Mr. Hagan, and CEA at the time, and I was part of that on CEA. We came up with a memo of understanding that actually represents the numbers that you gave. In fact, the proposal was 25 at kindergarten, 27 in grades 1 through 3, 32 and 4-6, and 35 and 7-8. Currently, we do look at those numbers, and the district is doing T for T not just at a sub-rate, but when there's a vacancy at the higher rate for teachers. In addition to that, Dr. Aguilar was very, very supportive in when classes were exceeding the numbers, allowing us to put in support subs to go push into classrooms and rotate. So the district is taking every step to support those overage sizes, but when there are not qualified teachers to put in rooms, because of teacher shortages, we are going to have large class sizes. But the numbers that you have indicated here are something that we're already operating off of an understanding, a memo of understanding that came out in 2015. So I don't know if that's something that you're aware of, but that was something CE agreed to at that time, and we were facing large class sizes, and the district is compensating teachers at a very high rate currently for taking those overages of students, and they're providing additional support to teams by providing support subs to go in and push in or do pull out.
So a couple things I would like to address. One, I think while I do think historical context is important, the association, as you know, every few years elects new leaders. So I think it is important that those conversations are fluid from year to year, and the understanding of things changes. And really what we're trying to get at here with the class size is, beyond the time anyone at this table is here, or at the other table is still with this district, we want to set up a strong foundation for the future. And I think while there was the memo of understanding in, I think it's 2015, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's really important for us moving forward to consider, what is the acceptable max. And if you might have noticed from our last, I forgot to mention this, but from our last proposal, we want to actually place this entire language into the handbook. I know that it's currently board policy talks about class size, but clearly this has to also do with working conditions as well. So that's just to be clear on where we're wanting this language to go, is in the handbook. But I hope that you consider, I understand, if we're flexible on coming to an agreement on this. I want to be clear, because like I said, we don't have all the data. And I know we have the teacher vacancy pay, and I know that would come into action, but that's based, if I'm not mistaken, on 10% above the average. I think the problem with that language is that average fluctuates from year to year, and from based on how many educators we have. So we would like to have that average be kind of set, because our class sizes are set. Also, is there anywhere that was there's a written place to find the memo of understanding? Or is that more of a verbal?
No, it was all in our records. Each team had a record of that, and it was worked out in a committee.
Okay, thank you.
I think you good with new proposals?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to District Administrative Team presentation of new meet and confer proposals. I'd like to ask Ms. Farrar to join us to discuss some salary information she'd like to share with both teams.
Good evening, everyone. What I'm passing around is a draft of the certified step schedule that would apply to all certified employees on the certified schedule. This proposal makes some funding assumptions that we would receive 1.5% average annual inflation provided by the legislature as well, and this does include to base the proposed last 5% of the 20 by 2020 funding that the governor has in his proposed budget at this time.
I'll make a copy.
The major changes to this would be to grant new teachers more experience coming in by not limiting those with bachelor's degrees to only 9 years and those with master's to, I believe it was 12, We've extended that all the way down to 20 years for anyone with a master's and above. Bachelor's would be up to 14. Budgetary wise, this is expected to cost about $4 million, considering the staffing, but again, this does assume that we will receive the inflation and the last 5% of the governor's 20 by 2020 funding. On the classified side, we are doing something different. We are doing a professional salary study based on job description. Right now, we have what we call ranges, and we've kind of attached general descriptions to employees that don't necessarily do the same job, such as facility maintenance technicians. Some of them could be locksmiths, some of them are plumbers, electricians. We've got them grouped all together when essentially they are really different jobs. So the idea is to make sure that we create an accurate schedule per job description as opposed to the ranges. And right now, we don't have that study back, and I don't know how much that's going to cost yet.
Do we, I know we spoke about this at a different meeting, but when are we estimating that that study comes back?
April,
Early or late or?
mid-April.
So I have some questions.
Mhm.
Okay. Just to clarify, the 301 money, is it included in here or is not?
The base salary is, but not the performance.
So which, okay. So site fund 11 and 13
Yes.
are included in there. Okay. So similar to the other scale.
Yes.
I think that there's definitely some discussion, hopefully moving forward over the next couple of meetings and with the salary schedule committee and some changes to this. And I also think that we should develop some language for revisiting the salary schedule. For example, if new funds come in from the governor, whether that's an initiative or through the legislative session, the teams can convene to look at the schedule, or there being at times. So whether that's every 2 years or however often we deem appropriate, because I know there needs to be stability in the salary schedule, but also cost of living goes up and things change. So it might make sense to write some language into maybe the bottom of this, just so that we have that procedure in place. What would currently under the schedule the way it's written, what happens to employees at the end of the scale?
The proposal is that they would not be harmed, they would not be placed. If they're making more than what's set on the schedule, they would receive a one-time 1%, but then that would not be added to the base.
And would that just be for the initial year or 4 years?
I believe that would be ongoing.
1%, that would be like a COLA, not added to the base. So if someone currently sat above the schedule in their base pay, they would then be frozen as their base pay. And then I know we made this point last year, and maybe I was misunderstanding this the last time I looked at it, but 301 money changes from year to year, and has the ability to change in the amount allotted based on the funding and the committee. Not sure. Again, I know, and I understand that the selling point for recruitment, but I think we still have the stance that it is confusing to put the two together and call it the base pay when that, in fact, 301 money is not part of the base pay.
Well, I guess it's terminology, but it is considered base salary, meaning that the name of the fund is base salary. I believe it's Fund 11.
And, yeah, and I understand that. But I think, in terms of the people looking at the scale, I think there's some confusion there because that number could fluctuate, so. And I guess we'll have to be clear about that when talking to people. So I know that we're rescheduling the salary schedule committee for next Wednesday, and we can take definitely a deeper look there. Just some initial thoughts to put out there, and I don't know if there's a rationale for my team here to hear. The initial salary is quite high. We have last year's numbers. I have it earmarked. Is there a rationale for raising the beginning year teacher salary by a significant amount, by about $3,000?
That is correct.
So is there a rationale, is there a goal, I guess is what I'm trying to get at?
Well, I believe the district's goal is to make sure that we hire and keep the best.
For consideration, one thing that I thought about, that I thought if it's possible to rework, is allowing the years of experience for MA Plus to go to 24 years, because at the 25th year, employees are given longevity pay. So I think that logically that makes sense to me, that would be a good place to cap that. We would like to see what the numbers look like lowering the starting pay to see if we can get a bigger jump for a year to reward longevity in the district. And again, we can talk about this through the committee, but it's the initial conversations that we've had with people is that some people, and not many people, just a few close confidants, is that certain people would actually not be receiving a raise at all under the scale, which I understand that when we're creating scales, that we need to create them sustainably. So I'm interested in seeing how we can rework the numbers without changing the cost, to see how we can reward experience for people who are in the district. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Thank you for doing this.
You're welcome.
I think
Thank you.
that people are going to be really excited when we come up with a collaborative schedule. So.
And one thing that I do want to make clear to everyone, and it's very important that no matter who's sitting in this chair that I'm sitting in now, whatever you do to year zero impacts the years that follow. So you never, once you institute a plan where you can create separation, you don't want to do something that's detrimental to separation. So you always want your first year teachers that are here now that become year 1 or 2 next year, you don't want them making the same amount as your brand new teachers. So as long as, I can put that on record and we can remember to always make sure that year 1 makes more than year 0. I think that's a good place to start.
I think that would be great. I have just a couple more questions that I forgot to ask in reference to classified staff. Some of the concerns that from our team were we want to make sure that, and I understand that there's a study, but we don't necessarily feel that reclassification alone would mean that, should mean that our classified staff don't deserve a raise or shouldn't get a raise. So we're hoping to find a way to make sure that we are taking care of our classified employees. And I know that we might not get the results of that study until April, but we would still like to move forward, and maybe find a way to secure a raise, a substantial raise for our classified staff.
So are you proposing that we say let's do a minimum of 5%, and if the study's better, then the study's better?
Let me maybe delegate here to classified. I think, is that something that it can be a fluid discussion, but yeah, I think this is either we could caucus and have a quick conversation, or it's maybe there's another day that we could kind of talk about that. The last question I have on this, and then I'll see if anyone on my team does, is there going to be a meeting where we have a more comprehensive budget analysis like we have in years past?
At what point, I need to defer to Dr. Murphy and Tom on what the timeline is and when that typically happens at CEA.
You're talking about the.
Sorry, so last year, Mr. OJ came in and gave us a breakdown of the enrollment and different portions of the budget. I was wondering if, because I know that's been a past tradition, and it's something that I think would help our team understand the perspective on the budget.
Yeah, I think they're just used to seeing a portrayal of this in a different format that was used by the previous CFO. So as far as I know, that would, the timing on that, typically, I think that's been presented with the, proposal being put on the table. So I think, depending on what you're needing, that could likely be provided.
So I think part of the request from us would be that before agreeing to a salary schedule or a raise, if we have a more comprehensive state of, for lack of a better term, state of the budget in Cartwright. I know the board usually gets that, but for our team to kind of have an understanding of where we're at financially and why. I'm sorry, I'm kind of fumbling the words here, but the point is we would like more information about the budget so that we can make the best decision we can possible and in accordance with the district.
I believe Mr. Hancock and I will defer to the CFO for that. Could I ask one question though, and then I'll give you back the mic? Just for 10 years, I've sat here and we've always presented the proposal based on a percentage. So I guess my question, I just want to ask you, could you share, by the time we look at, again, this is going back from one step to step, but by the time you look at the increment and whatever else you've added in here as a cost of a living allowance, so what percentage increase does this represent for a teacher?
It's designed to average out to a 6.5%.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. OJ. Oh, okay. Oh,
Mr. Del Sante sharing that 2 years ago it was March 8th when Mr. OJ held forth with that information you're talking about, so we'll see what we can do on that.
Yeah, and the reason I bring up this is because I know that there is some, there is a desire to pass the schedule before contracts are released so that people know where they will fall. And in order for that to happen, we would probably need a more detailed budget analysis at the next meeting Confer meeting. If we were to pass this through meeting Confer process in February.
Victoria, would that be possible?
While in enrollment numbers, we can estimate this early in the year for next year, the hard part is knowing exactly where the legislature will fall in the budget, as well as what the allocations are going to be set for classroom site. Normally that doesn't come out until later. So I can't give hard and concrete final numbers until I have the final numbers from the state.
Okay. Then I guess the request is any information you feel is concrete, we would love that as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
All right, moving on to the pending proposal section. Looking at the norm of, counter proposal within 2 meetings, so there isn't anything to share for these 3 items. But I did want to just note that they are still pending. So the first one, CEA proposed changes to extra pay for extra duty. CEA proposed change to representation, and CEA proposed change to personnel records and files. Counter proposals will be submitted for those.
For one of the proposals, may I have like a clarification on what we were getting at? So for personal records and files, the language that we submitted did include, I think, improvement plan. We, in general, I think the spirit of that proposal, and this is where I'm hoping the district can work with a counter, is looking at, for more of the low-level, non-disciplinary things such as, letters of direction, some growth plans. What is kind of like the time frame and the procedure for those being removed in between different administrators? Kind of just like this idea that educators have with their students is that we want a fresh start. That sometimes with certain things, it does seem that there would be some appropriateness to allowing our employees to have a fresh start with a new administrator. So we just, when you're looking at that and you see, you're like, well, the improvement plan is a no-go, please counter with what you think is acceptable, because as we were having our conversations about this, we realized that maybe that's not one that we should have put in there ourselves. So we're looking for your feedback.
Thank you. I think that my understanding of the spirit of this was in line with what you said. The counter proposal for this, the plan is for it to be detailed with language change, et cetera, as you described.
Thank you.
All right. Anything further on those items? All right. And then as far as action items, there are none there. Other information requests for future agenda items as information, discussion, and possible action at a future meeting. So I think the one that we've discussed is just some insurance committee timeline. So that will be a future agenda item. And Mr. Bella, the way that you had sent some thoughts for agenda items, find that an appropriate way as well.
I have a question. Just because last year the way that we kind of functioned was if we were going to respond to a proposal, we kind of revisit them each meeting. Is the way that we're intending, because we do have a response to the district's proposal. I don't know if that should just be moved to the next meeting, and I then let you know that we have a response to a proposal that was submitted. Is that how?
It was not. I did not place it on the agenda simply to give the 2-meeting time frame, but I didn't want to. Just want to let you know that counter proposals were coming to the other ones. Okay. If you'd like to suggest now adding the response, we can certainly do that.
Just so that just so that we have some time, more time at the next meeting. I think that having a discussion about this proposal at this meeting seems appropriate.
Okay.
If that's okay with your team and my team. So where we are currently standing with this proposal, the way that it is currently written, I know it wasn't intended to be a huge deal, is not something that we are looking to support right now. And the rationale for that is that in our view, if we are really trying to be, a community, it seems to me that one, the employees are, they can make that decision whether to donate or not. It's kind of their own choice. But also that there's really no benefit in striking this language for an employee because it is their decision. There might be situations where someone is covered and doesn't want to accept the waiver, which I think at a half rate would be $750. But the greater help would be allowing another employee to have full health insurance coverage, and that's our concern. I don't know how common, and I'm sure it's not a super common scenario, but having that option, I think, does make some sense. The thing where I think we could come together is finding a way to craft that language to make it so that there's less pressure. I don't know what that looks like. But essentially, reading this language, the only because I've never heard a story, I guess, of an educator feeling pressured to donate their half. And if there is, maybe we could continue talking about that. But this would definitely, in situations where employees are covered under better health insurance, would save the district money. Which we're not opposed to saving the district money, but we definitely think that people should have health insurance if possible, and if we can help each other out as a community, we have an interest in doing that. So, unless there's more rationale that we're missing here.
Well, I don't think anyone's saying people shouldn't have health insurance. But we're talking about a situation that currently does not even exist for the next school year at this point with that language. So, to be honest, it was just something that did come up as a situation of pressure, and that's why it was looked at and discovered. However, going forward, if we're at a point where we're just going to let it go for now, I think we're okay with it.
Okay, so we'll reconsider as well, and reach out and see what we can find. It's just that option of not, like, if you wanted to, not being able to, I think is, we don't want a situation like that, but I understand your perspective too, if it's been an issue, so, thank you.
Thank you. Any other requests for future agenda items we haven't covered?
Does anyone on the team have any suggestions? I think we're good.
All right, perfect. The next scheduled Confer meeting will be held on February 20th, 2020 at 4:15 p.m. in the Cartwright School District Governing Boardroom. Go ahead and move to adjournment if the CA team is in agreement.
Will second.
All right, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Never. And Justin, I think it might. Yeah, lots of excitement. Thank you. Yes, I have mine tomorrow. I hope it's going to be good.
So I see you didn't